The stellar death pits operated on a business model that would have made ancient Roman emperors weep with envy. Take the galaxy's most dangerous predators, throw them into elaborate death traps, and charge obscene amounts of money for the privilege of watching natural selection work overtime. Located in the gravitational shadow of a collapsed neutron star, the arena complex had been designed by beings who understood that nothing said entertainment quite like the screams of the terribly overconfident. Warlord Crex Thermion of the Volthari Empire lounged in his obsidian viewing throne, tentacles wrapped around a goblet of fermented Zephyrian blood, while he contemplated the day's roster with the satisfaction of someone about to witness a very expensive joke. The holographic betting displays showed odds that defied mathematical comprehension, 50,000 to 1, against the human surviving beyond the opening ceremony. Even the arena's quantum prediction algorithms had filed formal complaints about being asked to calculate something so obviously doomed. "Remind me," Crex gurgled to his aide, a perpetually nervous Flixian named Torv, whose species had evolved from anxiety into an art form, "why exactly we're allowing this walking meat sack to participate in our refined establishment." Torv consulted his data crystal with the enthusiasm of someone reading his own autopsy report. "My lord, apparently some human academic deposited the minimum entry fee." Dr. Nina Cross, who claims to specialize in what our translators render as aggressive futility studies. She wagered precisely 1 galactic credit on her species champion. 1 credit. Crex's secondary stomachs rumbled with what passed for laughter among his kind. What does this delusional academic expect to accomplish? Should the human somehow avoid immediate death, sir, she would collect 50,000 credits. 50,000 credits for watching a bipedal mammal achieve room temperature. Crex shook his massive head, causing several smaller heads to bob in sympathetic motion. The universe has clearly exhausted all sensible forms of stupidity. In the preparation chambers beneath the arena, Marcus Vale was experiencing what philosophers might call an existential moment, assuming those philosophers had been trapped in a cage next to beings specifically designed to end existences. The auto-translator helpfully informed him that the creature in the adjacent cell, a Nexthorian berserker named Gorvak, was discussing the nutritional value of human spinal fluid. 2 cells over, a bio-enhanced Catherian assassin called Ixias was running combat simulations and making pleased chittering sounds about soft target elimination protocols. Meanwhile, the reigning champion, an entity known as Zeth Kral, the Obsidian Destroyer, was radiating enough superheated plasma to power a small moon, while contemplating new and creative ways to reduce opponents to their component atoms. Marcus, for his part, was doing jumping jacks and wondering if his mother would appreciate the irony of him dying in exactly the sort of place she'd always warned him he'd end up if he didn't make better life choices. Arena Overseer Vex Corinthan materialized outside Marcus's containment field, with the smug satisfaction of someone about to watch natural selection perform live theater. Vex belonged to a species that had evolved beyond physical form, existing as pure consciousness housed in crystalline matrices. This made him insufferably intellectual about everything, particularly the aesthetically pleasing ways contestants might achieve non-existence. "Ah, the human specimen," Vex observed, his energy form shimmering with condescending amusement. "I've reviewed your species' combat statistics. Quite underwhelming, really. No natural weaponry, limited sensory capabilities, structural integrity comparable to wet cardboard. Explain to me what precisely you hope to accomplish against opponents who represent millions of years of evolutionary optimization for warfare." Marcus paused his exercise routine and regarded the energy being with the expression of someone who had received this lecture before. "Well, he said, wiping sweat from his forehead. "I figure if I'm going to die horribly anyway, I might as well make it memorable." "Memorable?" Vex repeated, the concept rippling through his consciousness like radiation through a detector. How delightfully naive. The first elimination round took place in what the arena marketing department cheerfully called the molecular dissolution chamber, a charming environment, where corrosive fog descended from the ceiling, while contestants navigated a maze of platforms suspended over pools of liquid that could break down organic matter at the atomic level. The arena's engineers had calculated that most species would require approximately 3 minutes to either reach the exit portal or become very expensive soup. Gorvak, the next Thorian, had a characteristically straightforward strategy: charge through the corrosive fog using his mineral-based hide as natural armor and demolish any obstacles through brute force. This approach worked magnificently for roughly 45 seconds, until the arena's particular blend of acids began eating through even his stone-like exterior, and he discovered that Berserker was not synonymous with chemically invulnerable. The Cytherian assassin approached the challenge with typical bio-enhanced precision, deploying specialized filtration organs and calculating optimal pathways through the hazardous environment. Unfortunately, the arena designers had employed acids specifically engineered to react poorly with artificial biological modifications. Sys made it 2/3 of the way across before its enhanced systems began attacking each other in a cascade of chemical confusion. Marcus Vale, observing this educational demonstration of advanced alien superiority, had reached a conclusion that would later require extensive therapy for the arena's observation staff. He removed his jacket and began using it as an improvised gas mask. "What is the human doing?" Vex demanded, staring at the surveillance displays with the expression of someone watching physics file a formal complaint. "Sir," reported a technician whose species had evolved from particularly neurotic algae, "it appears to be filtering the corrosive atmosphere through its primitive textile covering." Indeed, Marcus was breathing through his jacket while navigating the platform maze with the determined clumsiness of someone who had never been accused of overthinking anything. The fabric dissolved rapidly, but not rapidly enough to prevent him from reaching intermediate platforms where he grabbed pieces of dissolving infrastructure to use as improvised shields and breathing apparatus. "This violates several fundamental principles," Vex muttered, watching the human hopscotch across dissolving platforms with equipment that shouldn't work but somehow did. The predictive models specifically indicated total human failure within. "Sir," the technician interrupted with the voice of someone delivering bad news to someone capable of having him recycled, "the human has reached the exit portal." Marcus stood in the safety zone, grinning with the expression of someone who had just discovered that the universe's quality control department had been drinking on the job. Behind him, 2 representatives of allegedly superior species were being processed into component molecules by the arena's cleanup systems. The second elimination round featured individual combat against Isis, who had somehow survived the chemical bath and was now doubly motivated to restore bio-enhanced dignity through creative violence. Isis represented the pinnacle of Cytherian military evolution: enhanced reflexes, reinforced skeletal structure, and neural modifications that process tactical information faster than most planetary defense computers. Against a primitive human, victory wasn't just inevitable, it was mathematically predetermined. Isis approached Marcus with the fluid grace of a predator that had never encountered prey capable of disappointing it. "Human," it announced, its voice a perfectly calibrated synthesis of threat and academic superiority. "Your species' documented reaction times average 0.2 seconds. My enhanced neural networks operate at 0.02 seconds. You will be terminated before your primitive nervous system registers the initiation of my attack sequence." Marcus nodded thoughtfully, as if receiving useful career advice. That's probably accurate, he agreed. Fortunately, I wasn't planning to react to your attacks. Clarify this statement. Well, Marcus explained, scooping up a handful of arena sand, you're programmed to fight opponents who follow rational combat algorithms. The thing is, I've never been accused of rationality. Before Exis could process this information through its enhanced tactical systems, Marcus threw sand into its optical sensors and charged forward with all the strategic sophistication of a caffeinated rhinoceros. This maneuver did not exist in any galactic combat database. Exis's enhanced neural network spent critical microseconds attempting to categorize the attack pattern, during which Marcus tackled the bio-enhanced killer using techniques learned not from military academies, but from years of recreational combat with equally irrational human friends. The arena audience watched in stunned silence as the impossible unfolded. A primitive human was grappling a bio-enhanced super soldier into submission using moves that no computer could predict because they violated every principle of efficient warfare. Worse, Marcus appeared to be winning through the simple expedient of refusing to acknowledge that he was outclassed. "Sir," the technician reported in a voice barely audible above the sound of galactic assumptions crumbling, "the human has achieved victory." Vex observed the display where Marcus was helping his defeated opponent to its feet while offering what appeared to be encouragement about improved performance in future endeavors. "Initiate a complete diagnostic of our tactical analysis systems," he ordered. "Something has obviously malfunctioned. Sir, the systems are operating within normal parameters. They simply cannot account for behavior patterns that ignore logical optimization." "Then reprogram them." "Sir, we've tried. The computers keep crashing when we input human as a variable." The final confrontation was scheduled for the arena's primary combat amphitheater, a gladiatorial stadium capable of accommodating 3 million spectators while containing enough advanced weaponry to sterilize medium-sized solar systems. Zeth Kral, the Obsidian Destroyer, had maintained an unbroken winning streak for 7 standard years. An energy-based life form originating from the superheated core of a collapsing star, Zeth Kral existed as controlled plasma capable of achieving temperatures that could sublimate most known materials. Previous opponents had been reduced to free-floating atoms before managing to cross half the arena floor. The betting systems had surrendered and were displaying error messages. The quantum probability calculators had filed for early retirement. In the premium viewing section, Warlord Krex was questioning fundamental assumptions about reality, while his lesser heads argued among themselves about whether they were experiencing shared hallucinations. "Perhaps," suggested Dr. Nina Cross, who had somehow acquired ringside seating despite wagering only 1 credit, "your entire approach to this problem is fundamentally flawed." Krex rotated his primary head to stare at the human scientist with the expression of someone discovering that his breakfast had developed opinions about astrophysics. "Elaborate. You've invested centuries breeding and enhancing warriors for maximum combat efficiency, Doctor," Cross explained while consuming what appeared to be primitive Earth confectionery. "You've created perfect killing machines operating according to optimal strategies. But Marcus isn't optimized for anything. He's just persistently stubborn. Stubbornness cannot constitute a tactical advantage," Krex insisted, though his conviction was wavering. "Can't it?" Dr. Cross smiled with the expression of someone about to prove a point. "Observe and learn." In the arena below, Zeth Kral manifested as a towering column of controlled stellar fire, radiating enough thermal energy to power major industrial complexes. The ambient temperature climbed to levels that should have instantly vaporized any carbon-based life form. Marcus, positioned at the arena's opposite end, was perspiring heavily but appeared otherwise unimpressed by his impending atomic dissolution. "Human," Seth Kral's voice resonated with the authority of stellar winds. "Your species represents weakness incarnate. You cannot comprehend the cosmic forces I command." Marcus wiped sweat from his face and shrugged with the casual indifference of someone receiving weather reports. "You're probably right about that," he called back. "But here's something about humans you might want to consider. We're generally too stubborn to recognize when we're beaten." With that declaration, Marcus began walking directly toward the plasma entity with the calm determination of someone heading to a routine appointment. Seth Kral responded by increasing the ambient temperature to levels that began liquefying the arena's reinforced walls. Marcus continued walking. The plasma entity unleashed focused energy beams capable of cutting through starship armor plating. Marcus dodged with the ungainly efficiency of someone who had learned evasion techniques from dodging household objects thrown by irritated relatives, and kept walking. "This defies physical law," Seth Kral raged, channeling more energy into the chamber until the air itself began undergoing nuclear fusion. "You should have achieved plasma state several minutes ago." "Yeah," Marcus agreed, still advancing step by impossible step. "I get that reaction frequently." The audience observed in absolute silence as the human closed the distance through what should have been instantly lethal conditions. Seth Kral's energy matrix began fluctuating, not from damage, but from something resembling existential panic. The entity had never encountered an opponent who simply declined to acknowledge superior force. "Define your nature," Seth Kral demanded, as Marcus reached the arena's center, now standing directly within the plasma field that should have converted him into component particles. Marcus considered the question with genuine seriousness. "Honestly, I'm just someone who's too stubborn to die and too dense to surrender." Then, in a maneuver that would be studied by xenobiologists for generations, Marcus reached out and grasped Seth Kral's energy matrix with his unprotected hands. The contact should have resulted in immediate atomic dispersal. Instead, something unprecedented occurred. The human's chaotic biological electrical field began interfering with the plasma entity's precisely controlled energy patterns. Seth Kral's form destabilized, fluctuating wildly as Marcus's nervous system generated random interference with the entity's quantum coherence. The Obsidian Destroyer, perfect killing machine and undefeated champion, was being short-circuited by the biological equivalent of electrical static. "Impossible," Seth Kral flickered, its voice distorting as its energy matrix collapsed into incoherence. The mathematical models, the probability calculations. Sometimes, Marcus observed, maintaining his grip as the plasma entity dissolved into harmless photons. The universe just appreciates a good practical joke. The arena fell into perfect silence. 3 million spectators sat in stunned disbelief, observing a perspiring human standing alone in the combat chamber, victorious over forces that violated every principle of tactical engagement they understood. Finally, Marcus raised his hand and waved at the crowd with the friendly casualness of someone greeting acquaintances at a social gathering. "Thanks for watching," he announced. "That was entertaining. Anyone know where I can get a decent meal around here?" "Doctor." Nina Cross collected her winnings while Warlord Krex experienced what his species termed a paradigm collapse, a condition analogous to having one's entire worldview systematically dismantled by cosmic forces with questionable senses of humor. Vex Corinthian submitted immediate resignation papers and enrolled in a contemplative monastery dedicated to questioning the fundamental nature of existence. Throughout the arena complex, extremely expensive computer systems were quietly calculating revised probability matrices for human survival in theoretically impossible situations. The results were immediately classified as potential threats to galactic social stability. After all, if information circulated suggesting that the universe's most formidable warriors could be defeated through sheer bloody-minded persistence, what implications would that have for the galaxy's carefully maintained hierarchy of superior and inferior civilizations? Perhaps, the computers noted in their final reports before being permanently deactivated, certain questions were better left unexamined, particularly when the answers involved humans succeeding at endeavors that should have resulted in their immediate termination. Marcus Vale, meanwhile, was already planning his vacation itinerary, preferably somewhere featuring neither corrosive atmospheres, plasma entities, nor advanced alien civilizations with strong opinions about human inadequacy. Some victories, he reflected, required more effort than others. But the universe apparently maintained a sense of humor after all, even if that humor involved making superior beings question everything they thought they understood about superiority.